Quentin Tarantino and Vince Gilligan. What do both of these names have in common? The first thing that might stick out is that they love their westerns. This is also before mentioning that they're directors for film and TV shows. But the biggest thing they have in common is the fact that they take inspiration from one famous film director, Sergio Leone, the man who is single-handedly responsible for saving an entire genre and paving the way for a new one, spaghetti westerns. His influence from behind the camera, though, has often been understated because even many years after his death, his unique style of storytelling, camera techniques, and depictions of conflict still continue to inspire the top film directors in the industry. Let me explain. Leone has one of the most distinct ways of telling stories. You can tell within the first few minutes of watching one of his movies that he takes his time to tell them. From a lone cowboy riding into a desolate town, or a trio of death waiting for their victim to arrive, his films captivate the viewer and intrigue them to wonder what the film is about. Very little is often said, but that is because it is showing the audience visually rather than telling them exactly what to think or feel. It's almost as if the film doesn't care about the audience watching and is here to serve one purpose only: to tell a story. This style of storytelling has heavily influenced one of the most popular shows in recent memory, Breaking Bad, directed by Vince Gilligan, which is absolutely the best example of this kind of storytelling in recent memory. Gilligan often cites Once Upon a Time in the West as the largest influence on Breaking Bad's and El Camino's style of storytelling and aesthetic. More specifically, he cites the beginning 15 minutes of the film as the main source of how he tells a story visually. Next, camera movements. When it came to Leone, he also had a different way of using camera angles and movements to his advantage. The manner in which Leone used wide camera lenses to depict large stretches of land. Most times, this was used to show how a character was weak or what position they held. For example, in Once Upon a Time in the West's opening gunfight, Leone has a wide camera angle making the villains closer and appearing larger in our view as compared to the hero, demonstrating the odds he's facing. But what Leone was most famous for was his use of extreme close-ups on his characters' faces, to the point where you could see every single bead of sweat dripping down their forehead. It's such an iconic way to frame a character that directors such as Tarantino and Gilligan have often cited using phrases to describe Sergio Leone's use of camera angles to great effect. For example, Tarantino has commonly used phrases on his sets such as "I need a Sergio Leone here" or there to communicate to the camera crew exactly what he's talking about. A great example of Tarantino using this effect comes from the movie Kill Bill. In these scenes throughout the movie, Uma Thurman's character, the bride, has extreme close-ups of her face whenever she confronts one of the ex-partners that have wronged her. This shows the tension between the two characters, just like in the final moments of A Fistful of Dollars, where all three characters have a showdown in the desert. Lastly, Leone's method of depicting violence was a major topic of discussion back in his day, so much so that various articles have been written about the violence in his movies. They were often quoted by saying that Leone had a tendency to make his violence flashy or unusually graphic and cynical. But looking back now on the Dollars trilogy, some would say the violence was rather cheesy and unrealistic by today's standards. But back then, this was not the case. Now it seems that directors like Leone paved the way for modern films to become more violent, with some directors such as Tarantino making it their signature trademark to many of their movies. This is especially true in his films like Django and The Hateful Eight, with displays of violence being bombastic scenes filled with gore and blood that in some cases literally paint the walls in blood. In conclusion, Sergio Leone deserves to be remembered as one of the greatest in cinema history, the man who almost single-handedly saved the most American film genre while ironically not being from America.